Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me this afternoon or wherever you're at in the country. So today I thought I'd paint these fun little flowers. They're very easy and they make a really beautiful card. Um, if you're one of those lucky people that has beautiful calligraphy skills, I think that would be wonderful as well. I don't. So today I'm actually using a little bit different brush, surprise, right? Because I always use my number 8 round Princeton brush. But today I'm actually using my Princeton brush, but it's called a filbert. So if you can see, it's got this rounded end instead of the point, and I thought that might be fun today. So I'm also going to be using my Winsor Newton paints. Surprise, surprise, I'll be using my favorite Quin Magenta, maybe a little bit of orange, and some cad, or that was cad yellow and cad orange. So let's just start here. Using my 140 pound 300 GSM textured cold press paper. So it's got this beautiful texture. And make sure, I always say buy whatever supplies you can buy and afford, but I think if you're going to splurge on anything, splurge on your paper because that can really make a difference. If you get too thin or inexpensive paper, it's going to buckle and puddle and pull, and you're going to get really discouraged. So, buy decent paper and then kind of play with some of the brushes. And I like Winsor Newton paints, but you can try just your plain pan paints too. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using both the side of my brush and flattening it out and using the width or the belly of my brush. Okay, so let's just start painting plain here. So you guys, you know what? This paintbrush almost paints flowers on its own. I swear. If you can get a filbert brush, get one. I forgot how much I love painting with them. Now I just watered my paint down and look what that does. It makes it look like it's kind of in the background. So I'm using both the side of my brush and I'm using the uh, the belly of my brush as well. So I'm just going to keep going here. Kind of, I'm always using this word, dab, 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 dab. I might just tap in some of these darker colors and let it spread a little bit. Now I'm also, somebody saw this on Instagram and said, hey, can you make a YouTube video out of that? And I said, of course. So I'm going to use a little bit of this cad orange and maybe mix it with some of my cad yellow. Let's see what we do with that. I think this magenta and orange is so beautiful together. Oh, look at those colors. So I'm just, playing here to get the sides of the flower. I'm kind of going back and forth, but I start with the belly of the brush. And then I'm just making these little flowers peeking out here and there. Grabbing a little more paint. Let's make a few coming out here. And let's get a little bit of this color. I think this magenta and orange is so beautiful together. I'm gonna add in some here. Now I talk about leaving white space. Definitely leave these white spaces in here. And I'm working on doing actually a YouTube for you guys with that because I've had a lot of people ask about that. It creates interest. I'm not a big fan of using white paint. So I like to preserve the whites on my page. That's kind of my thing. That's how I was taught, and I guess it just stuck in college. So I'm going to switch over here to back to that cad orange. Just water it down a little bit so it's not too dark. Making sure that I'm washing my brush and then rinsing it so I don't carry over that dark color into my orange. That's what will happen, and then you'll get these kind of muddy colors if you're not rinsing your brush well. And that means rinsing it in washing it and then rinsing it in a separate container. So just playing here. You know, a lot of times, you guys, I just kind of let my hand do its thing. And on something like this, if you just have these beautiful colors, you know, it's going to be pretty. We're going to go back in a minute and we're going to add some leaves. Ooh, I got a big chunk there. So I definitely do not want that because that would be crazy. Now I got to add some water here. There we go. So there. Whew, that would have been something. So I'm going to go back in a minute and I'm going to add in some greens for some leaves here and there, but all the time preserving these whites, these white spaces. That's how I learned. And I think it makes a big difference in your paintings because it really engages your viewer to kind of fill in those spaces and say, oh, this is what I think might be in that space. It's much more interesting. And using these dark and light colors, dark and light values of this purpley color, magenta color, less water, you're creating these pieces that kind of pop out, right? And then the more water, they're a little bit more faded. So I'm going to really wash my brush and get all that paint off, which is kind of hard because that magenta, it wants to stay in my brush. And then I'm going to rinse in nice clean water and just scrape off the excess. And then I'm going to grab some sap green. So let's just grab that and make some leaves here. Don't want it too, add a little bit more water, but I'm scraping my brush off so it's not dripping. And then I'm just going to start going in here, dab, 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 dab. And we're just going to start creating these little leaves tucked in. How's that? Isn't that pretty? I hope this inspires you to pull out your paintbrush maybe this evening, this weekend, and give this a try. You know, it's really about these beautiful colors. I mean, honestly, I'm doing the same strokes as I did for the flowers, all with this one brush, this filbert brush is what it's called. And I'm just kind of working my way around. I don't want to fill in all these white spaces because that creates a lot of interest with those spaces. So I'm just, you know, tucking them in here and there, adding them where you think they look nice, making sure these flowers are dry, by the way, before you do this, because otherwise, well, you'll have one big hot mess because everything's just going to blend into a big, you know, water goes where water is. So if you're putting wet paint into wet paint, it's just going to spread. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit darker value. So let me grab a little bit darker value of that same paint. I can either use this exact same paint and just less water, or I can bring in this other color, which I believe this is called green gold. let's get a darker value of that green. Now let's go in and we'll just look. Oh, isn't that fun? There we go. And we're just going to add in some more here. And it gives you this beautiful interest with different colors, kind of adding in, tucking in here and there. There we go. Now, for the kind of final piece in here, I'm going to switch brushes. So I'm washing my brush off really well. Make sure you never keep your paintbrush in your water, like sitting like that, because what will happen is a number of things. Your number one going to, I just dripped on my painting, so I'll just sop that up. You're going to, on brushes that have a beautiful tip, like my number 8 Velvet Touch Princeton, we have this really beautiful point on it, which is so lovely. We want to really save the integrity of that. So we don't want to put it in like this because it's going to smash the tip. It also will gather water inside your ferrule, and I've lost bristles. I've had my handle pieces peel off, the wood peels off. So don't leave your brushes in your water. I have these little brush holders that I rest my brushes in. Okay, so we're going to go back and add a little detail in here. I'm going to use a dark color. I don't even think I have black on my palette. This is called Payne's Gray, and it has just a little bit of bluish in it. And I'm just going to create dot, 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 little dots or dabs, dot dabs. And this kind of creates the feeling of more details than really I have in here. So because I'm not a detail person, this many times is all I need. So I'm just going to keep going along here, just choosing a couple. Now this flower was kind of wet, so that spread a little bit. But mostly I'm going into the dry areas. So I feel like too, when I add these little black dots, it's kind of giving my eye an opportunity to move around the page. So tiny little dots here. And it's just creating that little bit of interest in really a very washy original painting. So there you go. I hope you guys will try this. You could use this for so many things. A little card. You could cut it up into little tags, gift tags. And to me, this just looks like a big bouquet, doesn't it? How'd you like to receive that? I think I would like that. So there you go. I'm going to put a couple more right here. And I think that is quite enough. So give this a try. Let me know what you think. This technique I used basically for the most part was a wet into dry, which is wet paint onto dry paper. There's a few little areas that I went in with some wet paint onto wet paint. But for the most part, this was wet and dry. So you see these very distinct lines. Now, if I'd done this on wet paper, it would have been very soft and ethereal, which you can actually do with a very light version. If I really watered down that Quin magenta, I could go in and just add some little pieces here, and it would look like they were in the background because they're very faint. So that's kind of fun sometimes to go in and kind of add some little watered down, using a very watered down color and adding them into the background. And it gives that illusion that there's something going on back there, and it can be very interesting. Okay, So I'm going to quit now before I make a big muddy mess. And I hope you enjoy this. All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy painting. And I hope I see you over on my Instagram and my Facebook page. I try to put different content on every page, and it's a little bit different styles. So I'll see you soon. All right. Give it a try. Bye.